Folks, welcome inside the Parisi Palace, high above 3773 East Broadway. This is a live edition of the Jake Feinberg Show, comedy on Power Talk. Please go to our website, powertalk.live. Download our free app to your smartphone so you can stream all of our live local programming, including Solomon on Blast, the Jim Parisi Show, and yours truly, the Jake Feinberg Show. And we can't thank you enough for making us part of your day today. And what a high honor it is after 8 years and 4,000 radio interviews and countless pursuits into the indigenous rhythms and the cultural heritage of our great country. I get a chance to continue today with one of the most rhythmic and incredible brotherhoods that this country has ever seen, the Neville Brothers. I had an opportunity in 2017 to do two really amazing interviews with the late, great Cyril Neville, whose spirit still is with us today. I felt him very deeply once I connected with my next guest, knowing that I'm continuing to shine light on absolute heroes of music, and I got a chance today to speak to an incredible percussionist and drummer and singer, and just a guy who's always staying on the righteous path, which I think is the greatest path to be on, because even if you are struggling, you know you're doing right by your maker. Cyril Neville, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Thank you for inviting me, man.
So great to connect with you, brother. You know, I wanted to do, we let in with this track, Gossip, that you cut on Josie Records. And I'm just wondering, like, how did you learn to get comfortable playing drums and singing at the same time? It's very hard to do.
Well, actually, that wasn't me playing drums on that. That was Cyril. That was actually the leaders that were the studio band. And the song basically was written by Leo knows each other in the writing session that he and I had a couple of weeks before we went to Macon, Georgia, because that's where we recorded that. But I do have that. I play drums, and now my son, Omari Neville, is the drummer and singer in my band, and he has his own band called Omari Neville Fuel, F-U-E-L, with Darryl Johnson, original bass player from the Neville Brothers.
Absolutely.
So the funk just continues to unfold.
You know, Cyril, just I want to be able to make sure that everybody can hear you. So either, I don't know if you're on speaker, but just come closer to the. I want to be able to hear your voice as clearly as possible.
Okay.
You know, yeah, you know, it's perfect now. So Zig. So first of all, you went to Macon. You went to Capricorn Records. Where did you record that?
Actually, Phil Walden had something to do. I think it was the same studio that Otis used to record that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I cannot believe you went to Macon. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, you were described online as a percussionist, but I mean, when do you play the trap drums?
Yes, that's what I graduated, or migrated over into the percussion area, you know, and that came up through being associated with my uncle, Big Chief Jolly, of the Wild Chapter 2 Vineyards. And, you know, going from Indian practice to Indian practice with him as one of his drummers, I learned that even though we were all Indians, and everybody was playing the same songs, like, for instance, Two-Way Pocketry. Well, when I'm at Jolly's practice, the rhythms is one thing. Once we got by Big Chief Pete, and then down in the third wall, playing the same song now, and rhythm totally different. You know, going down into the 7th wall, 6th wall, each Indian group is playing the same song, but they got a different little rhythmic inflections on it. So I picked up on all of that stuff. You know, then there was a thing that a couple of people like a guy guy named Elliot Burke, and Alfred Roberts, another great percussionist.
Oh, I know Uganda very well. Yeah.
Basically, that's who I learned from, and we used to do this thing on the lakefront every Sunday with a bunch of drums and stuff out there every Sunday, and that's another, street school that I got a chance to go to get my chops together, but being growing up in the neighborhood that I grew up in was, just like a bunch of other neighborhoods in the city, was really very musical. There was, not just the Neville family, not just Zane, not just George, but Deacon John Moore and his family, the Alcorn family, and it's, like I said, we are just one of the many musical families in New Orleans. In our neighborhood, like every other neighborhood in the city, constantly had music. Somebody rehearsing in the living room or somebody rehearsing in the shed in the backyard, but the music could be heard and people would gather. And, that's basically how things were done before Mr. Gerrymander and
Absolutely. No, I mean, I want to read you this quote from my interview with Alfred Roberts. He said, a bunch of us would get together on Lake Pontchartrain and play conga drums. We came from different parts of the city. Word of mouth would get out. Man, they got a cat over in the 3rd ward that can play congas. Hey, man, we got a cat in the 9th ward that can play congas. Eventually, we would meet and we decided to go out to the lakefront and play those drums. The cars would pass by slowly as we were playing, and they'd be tooting their horns according to the rhythm we were playing. In the parking lot, a lot of people would come over and start dancing near the water. Now they just call it drum circles. Back then we were jamming and enjoyed the weekend with our drums. There was always a certain amount of us that would get together. If it wasn't behind closed doors playing, then we were out by the lakefront. And, Cyril, I feel like we're in a time now, just societally in this country, where the vibrational level is so low. The vibrations are low. And I wanted you to talk about growing up. Maybe you were aware of it, but maybe you weren't. But vibrationally, how high the levels were when you were being mentored by Big Chief Jolly and those other mentors that you had, because that's all my show is dedicated to, is essentially trying to raise vibrations at this point.
Mm-hmm. Well, what you just got finished describing, what Alfred described to you, man, was my classroom. Every Sunday, that's where I was out there with, I'm talking about I played till my hands bleed, but that was a not just a Sunday thing. That was like to me, a rite of passage. Because you couldn't just go out there and just jump on the drum, especially if you didn't bring a drum out there, So, by your ability is how you got to be able to be part of that. And trust me, what they call a drum circle to be is light years away from what I'm talking about.
I want you to tell me about the Uganda Cyril Neville Sunday afternoon drum circle. The floor is yours, man, because I want to hear about it.
Described it perfectly. That cars would be slow and horns would be beat to the rhythm. Mr. Elliot Burke would be on his flute, and at some point it would be cats would come out there and ask and this was before anybody heard of hip hop or anything like that. While those drums was playing, cats would come out there and tell stories over those drums, like those old jailhouse toasts, like the signifying monkey, the pool shooting monkey, and all of that type of stuff, over the rhythms. And then some cats just made shit up right off the top of their head, but it was us. It was cool. And it was like, everything was fine until, they got this invisible thing that happens here. If you black and you having too much fun, the police come.
I did. I mean, this is, yeah. can you talk about, this is so abstract for a lot of people. To me, when I interviewed like Hugh Masekela, he was devoting the rest of his life before he passed away to going back and playing the folkloric African stories to people in Lagos and Ghana and all these places. And to me, when you start to talk about communication, telling stories through the drum, I don't know if you can verbally articulate it, but you said this one about the jailhouse. I mean, can you go a little bit deeper on how you communicated these stories through rhythm?
Well, basically, it's these what they call jailhouse toasts, and it's, these long poems. There's one called Black Diamond Pearl, one called Rock, and it's about street life, and it's like, my Uncle Jolly used to, they'd have a gathering on the corner every Friday evening with him, another brother, Mr. Ipperday, and we would sit out there and we would, just spout these things. Sometimes, somebody would just start beating on a box or something behind them, and there would always be some rhythm attached to it, because as the story being told, everything is rhythmic. The way the story is being told, the way the words are lined up, everything is rhythmic. But as far as that's all. The only mention of jail is that they call those things jailhouse toast.
Well, so again, I want, this is so vital. I just come a little bit closer to the phone. I want to be able to hear. But you said jailhouse. How do you spell the last?
They call them toast, Toasts, and it's like you could probably Google some of that.
Right.
But back then, we all come from an oral background. All of our histories were passed down to us orally. Most of the stuff that we do culturally is in the street and loud and boisterous. And that whole thing about being able to play drums and sing at the same time, that's in your blood when you're born down here, because what a lot of people don't understand is that whole thing about the Indians. That's not like Rex and Congress. That's not people pretending to be something that they're not. This is us rejoicing and in who we are, in our history, in our culture, and passing it down from generation, or rather passing it up from one generation to the next, because we are the indigenous people of this land, and so what we're doing is totally different from what that whole Mardi Gras thing, because that's a European concept. What we celebrate is Carnival. And Carnival, you can go to every island in the Caribbean and go all the way back to the west coast of Africa, and around the same time of the year, that is happening, whether they got a Fat Tuesday or not, which is what Mardi Gras is called. What we celebrate is Carnival. And, and the Ash Wednesday, Mardi Gras is over. But this is New Orleans is the northernmost part in the Caribbean. So
this is I need to get clarification, because I love Carnival. You're now the Mardi. Okay, so and how does that separate from the Mardi Gras Indians? I actually thought that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought Chief Jolly was a Mardi Gras Indian.
Chief Jolly is a Choctaw, Chata, Chatoma, Chapatoulas. That's what we are. And the connotation of Mardi Gras didn't come from within our circle. It was put on us by the powers that be here when they realized that they could make some money off of our culture, and they've been pimping it ever since.
Unbelievable. Okay, continue. So, like Monk Boudreaux would not have called himself a Mardi Gras Indian.
It's the same with the word jazz. That was a connotation put on that music from outside of the circle that was creating it. You go back and look through Louis Armstrong's music, and find me the word jazz.
I dig, man. I dig.
It was either a blues, a stomp, or a ragged. That word is a European connotation on our culture, just like the whole thing about the Mardi Gras. Is what I was trying to explain to you. Like there's a song associated with it by our Carnival Time Johnson. The name of the song is Carnival Time. He's describing different things that happen, and the refrain is all because it's Carnival time. You know, so basically, I used to hear my mom and them saying, "Oh, I know you, Mardi Gras." A Mardi Gras was a person that was masking. What we were rejoicing in and celebrating was Carnival and a chance to be ourselves.
Talking to Cyril Neville here, he's already blowing my mind. I mean, you don't live in New Orleans proper anymore, is that true?
Well, yeah, I mean, my soul is in New Orleans. You know, I live across the lake from New Orleans. You know, I can grow my own food and all of this kind of stuff. Like, I live in what you call Slidell, but the real name for it is Bonfaka. You know, and so, yeah, I mean, as far as everything about what I do and who I am is New Orleans, you know. Like, from what I just described to you about me going with my uncle from Indian practice to Indian practice, neighborhood to neighborhood, well, that's still happening to a certain degree, but not like it used to happen because the neighborhoods is gone. The neighborhoods have been so gentrified and, you know, gerrymandered and everything that, you know, it's hard. It's, you know, it's a struggle to actually keep the culture going. But, you know, we struggle this. This is what we do. We survive. You know.
I mean, explain. I remember talking to a great percussionist. He calls himself a New Yorican, is Ray Mantilla. He was in Max Roach's M-Boom ensemble, among other things, and played with Art Blakey. And he said that 75% of the Bronx, when he was growing up, had conga drums. This is going back in the 50s and 60s. So the drum was like a major connecting force. And he said it's probably down to a third of that now, if that. And Cyril, how do you, I mean, I caught your nephews at the Blue Nile, and they're, you know, Ricky and Norman, and, you know, they're keeping they're doing their thing. But I mean, as far as like, is there a way for you to feel that you are, I mean, do you have like, I don't want to say traditional students that come over and learn rhythms, but I mean, is there a way for you to talk about how that lineage and that language is going to still be alive? Again, one of the rhythm has been healing for me on this journey. I mean, it's a healing force. So I know the power of it, and I play a little bit. I'm not a professional. How do you keep that? Can you give a tangible example of how you keep that language alive amongst gentrification, which is evident the last couple of times that I've been to New Orleans?
Well, you know, like I said, it's a struggle. And you find the people who are really dedicated to the culture and know who they are, that the culture grew. You know, so we had Bo Dallas Jr. and Big Chief Kevin Goodman, Big Chief Victor Harris from down in the Ninth Ward, and every one of these people basically Rex and Comas in them after Mardi Gras Day, Ash Wednesday, they go back to being whoever they was before they put that mask on. But from Mardi Gras Day, Ash Wednesday, and on through the rest of the year to the next carnival, all of those big chiefs I just named, and Big Chief Monvoudron, and then is Big Chief whoever he is all year round. The culture don't stop. culture goes on all year round. You know, sewing starts for the next year right after St. Joseph night. And you start designing your suit for the next, and that's not costumes. The people on the floats wear costumes. We wear suits. Regalia.
Thank you, regalia. Thank you for that. It's going to take me a minute to process everything that you're saying. Did your family growing up go to a spiritual church?
Well, actually, my mother was Catholic. My father was Methodist. So, you know, every now and then, you know, we went to the Catholic church, which to me was work. You know,
I dig. Well, no, I asked because Melvin, Joe Lasty I interviewed, and Melvin Lasty was the one. He at the spiritual church he played at. He'd be playing. The only thing he was playing was a bass drum.
I was about to tell you about that particular family and that church there in the night wall. I would walk from the 13th ward all the way down to the night wall just to stand outside to feel the vibe coming out of it. Because the whole Lasty family played in that church. Debbie Lasty on piano, the Lasty brothers, Papi Lasty on drums, Melvin Lasty. I mean, it was one of the most, you can't get any more spiritual than that. But well, I would say the focus of, I would say worship or whatever was for the Black Hawk. He had a statue of this Black Indian. And to me, that was way closer to who I was and how that stuff coming out that church made me feel, as opposed to being in the Catholic church where I couldn't understand nothing the man was saying, because he was talking in Latin at that time. Everything in the mass was in Latin, so I couldn't understand nothing. Then you got a big old statue of Jesus bleeding out and all that stuff. And, so that was scary to me.
You know, also, I mean, let's be very clear. I mean, with diaspora, when the African people came here, you know, we had, white white slave owners saying, well, you know, you are the devil because of your skin color, so you must become Catholic, or you know, they pushed their own religion on you, on your own people. I mean, that to me was the most demoralizing thing, as opposed to the Yoruba religions or your own spirituality. You could not even keep your spirituality, you know?
Well, the whole thing about it, our whole history has been twisted to the point where, you know, you have to really search and research to really understand the trickery that went on in this corporation that we live in. You know, what I said about my uncle earlier, he's the one who basically taught me that we were indigenous, we were aboriginals to this land, that everybody carbonated, melanated, did not get here on slave ship. That, you know, some of us was already here, and evidence, I mean, like I said, you can Google anything nowadays, so the evidence is out there all over the place as to the truth. We are Choctaw. I found out later on that the correct pronunciation is Chata, and that the real name of the city of New Orleans was Chachoma, the city of the red sun. And the people that lived there were the Chapatulas, the people of the river. And if you don't believe me, you know, go back and, like I said, Google this. 1723 or something like that, you know, some Europeans over there looking for something to steal, and that's, you know, what their history is. So that's another way of really finding the real true history of us, is to go back and look through the European history. Because the trail of tears is there. And so like I'm saying, that brings me back to why I say Carnival is the sacred thing that happens when we do this thing called Indian. I'm not going to even say Mardi Gras Indian. It's something that is sacred, and it's about blood, and it's about culture, but it's also about who we are and where we come from, and preserving that. And the more and more people are coming to the realization that a lot of us who have been nicknamed a whole bunch of different things through the years, and all the way back from slavery days, it was calling it one thing, and then it got after that they started calling us something else, and only at one point, Indian, and the next thing to kind of muddy the waters, they started this campaign of like naming people, renaming people in association with away from what their true lineage was. So in other words, if you look on, you're looking up all of our ancestors' documents, looking at birth certificates, death certificates, and find out, okay, what were you calling this? Some of them have mulatto, some of them have Negro, some of them actually have freedmen, some of them had, and you could go all the way down through the years, and there's all these different names through Negro, colored, Afro-American, African-American, so on and so forth. Basically, this was all done on purpose back in the 1920s. They reclassified this, the Reclassification Act. Don't believe me? Look it up. The Reclassification Act.
This is unbelievable. Keep going, please. Keep going.
Oh yeah, like I said, you can Google it if you don't believe me. Reclassification Act. I think it's Act 1 and Act 2, where basically what they were doing in Virginia is stealing land by. But what this is called is the Paper Genocide. How a whole race of people, if you want to say race, or a whole nation of people is changed from who they are into something else that when you call them that, they don't have no ownership to the land. But as long as you calling them what they really are and who they really are, they can prove that this is their land. So, basically, we still, a lot of people think the Civil War ended. I think it did,
Oh, man. Talking to cats like, everybody from Christopher Columbus, vicious treatment, and it's never characterized that by. It's interesting, the terminology. It's the paper genocide, you called it?
Yes.
It's yes. The more that you label things that are not the accurate terms, the more that people don't know where their roots come from. And that's the thing that is disconcerting to me. It's just the younger generations not being confused, not confused, but just sort of inundated with all this terminology where they don't really know where they came from. And they have to know the roots of where they came from.
It's not an accident.
No, I know.
It's not an accident. It's all by design, and a lot of it is to keep so-called we the people so busy looking one way that we're not looking in the direction we're supposed to be looking. And as far as us as a people, when people start talking about, well, the Europeans came over and they didn't have anything, and they pulled themselves up by their bootstraps, and they, Well, basically, the descendants of, the slaves, they had no boots. So what bootstraps they were going to use to, when after the tech, they're working for us anymore, get off the plantation, and go for yourself. We don't give you 40 acres of meal. Oops, wait a minute, you can't do that because 10 of them will put their land together and there's some power, so you can't do that. So he moved forward with all of this division that I'm talking about. And that, as far as the educational system, so the indoctrination system. And most of the stuff that I learned in the junior high and the schools before that was, I find out later, all mythology.
Absolutely.
So, basically, that's what I keep saying, that Google, find out who you are for yourself. Go back and talk to your grandma. If you got elders left in your family, talk to them. You don't get to be old being no fool.
Well, no, okay, so, but let me, when I interviewed Charlie, he was on the road with the House Rockers. Forget the cat's name now. That was, but it was a circuit like Jack's Fiesta Club and Sunbeam Mitchell's and were you on the Chitlin Circuit at all in your early career? I mean the Southern Circuit.
Well, man, Charlie left home when he was 15 years old. He went out with the Rabbits for the minstrel show, and that was, those big hip things they used to have, put up around the turpentine camps and stuff like that. And that was by vaudeville, really. And because everybody from Big Mama Thornton to Bessie Smith, he played behind B.B. King. Let me tell you, very young B.B. King. So. Yes, and by the time I came along, the Chitlin Circuit was still alive and kicking, so to speak, because, throughout the ages here, we've been marginalized and minimalized into these certain little areas where you may be able to progress but at the speed we want you to progress at.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, if you ask me, it's still got a chicken circuit.
Because,
What I'm talking, what we talking about right now, as far as education is concerned, that's the way I've always looked at what me and my brothers did, what Alan did with Professor Longhair and James Booker, Dr. John, Jesse Hill, was edutainment. Because every time any of those bands got on stage, what you was looking at was pure, unadulterated root culture of New Orleans. Uncut. And that's what I try to do every time. That's what I do every time I hit the stage, because, if you ain't gonna do it right, don't do it.
Well,
I do everything from the root.
It's my whole show is about, for lack of a better word, I don't know what the right word is, education, re-education, the propaganda that's spilled into our... What's that?
And I like that, because that's what we need, some, really people vibrate at a higher level out here.
Oh, man, dude, Cyril, I'm not even operating on any kind of normal frequency. I am way off I've left the universe, so I know what my mission is, but I want you to talk. The reason I brought up the Chitlin Circuit, this is just important because I'm not sure. The PA systems were quite frankly, a train wreck. The technology was not very good. So you had to generate sound physically and acoustically. You couldn't rely on output from a PA system. And I kind of wanted to talk about the roots of the rhythm. When you were on these circuits and you would wind up in these antiquated places that didn't have sound systems that were legitimate, how did you create sonic expansion physically and acoustically on the drums?
Well, in the early days, a lot of the places we played were so small, you didn't need no, like you have everything mic'd all up nowadays. No, you had the bass player had an amp, the guitar player had an amp, and maybe the piano player, but back in the days, everybody was playing on the upright anyway. So there wasn't much need for a whole big old sound system and everything, But as things progressed into bigger facilities, well, what I would say about the Chitlin Circuit thing, well, you had places like the Howard Theater, the Uptown Theater.
Absolutely.
And Apollo, that was considered part of the Chitlin Circuit back in the day, And yeah, basically, if you didn't play them places, then nobody knew who the hell you were. So,
but I mean, so the better question is, where did your ears, your generation, man? I'm 41. My daughters are, 13 and 7. They've had. I mean, obviously, I have been cranking great music for them, but frankly, the majority of younger cats, have been having digital beats crunched into their ears. The great thing about your generation, your ears are huge. You hear everything. So I'm trying to figure out where your ears grew the most on the bandstand early in your career.
Oh, man, not on the bandstand. It's growing up in New Orleans during the time I grew up in New Orleans. There was, rhythm everywhere, music everywhere. Like, for instance, the paddle wheel boats on the river have a certain rhythm. The tugboat engines have a distinctive, funky rhythm. The St. Charles streetcar, going clickety-clackety-clickety, got another rhythm, And then there was a time when there was a lot of building going on. You was hearing these machines that was knocking the pilings in the ground, and it was this little thing, and we would have 4 or 5 of them at different spots. And, like, a lot of people think this is a very large city, but it's not that large, and that is Lincoln River. So like I said, in any neighborhood you were walking through, any black neighborhood you were walking through, you heard music coming out of people's house. You heard music coming out of whatever ballrooms that they had in the neighborhood, or out of whatever church that had their doors open. So there's music and rhythm everywhere around me when I was growing up.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's.
I was very.
Go ahead.
I was very lucky because my brother always was in a band called the Hawkettes. That was one of the hottest bands in town during the 50s, and they used to rehearse in our living room. So, I got a chance to do this and absorb all of this stuff because at any point, James Booker would be there, James Black would be there, a young skinny dude, white dude named Mac, who later became Dr. Jones. I think this is how the kids.
Yeah, right.
So, and like one of the drummers was John Boudreaux, another one of the drummers was Idris Muhammad.
Oh man, dude. Wait, hold on. I just want to be clear. John Boudreaux and Idris were playing double drums, or they would switch.
No, this was at different times because all of those rehearsals, regardless of what because that band, the Hawkettes, it was like an institution, and members changed, but the rhythmic content never changed. And like Art took over from Lil Millette was the lead singer, and he got drafted, and so Art took over from him. And he told me that he wound up getting drafted a little bit, but somebody came along and took over after him. But at this particular time, we had a place called Lincoln Beach, which, everything was segregated. So our beach was way out in the boondocks, which is now what they call East New Orleans. But you could at one point see Sam Cooke, Otis Redding, the 5 blind boys from anywhere in the world. And so that band, the Hawkettes, it was the talent contest. And, at one point it got to the point that it wouldn't let them enter the contest anymore because nobody could beat it.
Wow.
Yeah. And a lot of those cats that was playing in that band wound up being in Sax band, and dudes went on the road with Larry Williams with the Sharp That Fame and Bonnie Maroney era, But on the record, there are kids sitting right there, and I forgot Clarence Brown. Clarence Brown did that too, who became one of Sax's main drummers. The first time I had a pair of drumsticks put in my hand, it felt like I felt the electricity. And like I said, this was like on a daily, weekly basis in my living room. And all of those older cats was like, if they saw that light in your eyes, they wanted to make it brighter.
Oh my God. I could just listen. First of all, the drumsticks were wooden, and it felt like electricity. I love that. The reality is, though, you can riff on this any way you want. I had the high honor of interviewing Monk Boudreaux, and he told me this story, and it relates to this street scholar mentality of Cyril Neville, and quite frankly, the entire Neville family. I just want to read you this, and you can just riff on it. And I kind of want you to relate it to, again, the taking the music and the culture, stifling the culture and pushing it off the streets and putting music into academia. I really believe that, I think it's great that great musicians can get a paycheck and things like that, but I don't think vocabulary and music can grow in academia. And I just want to read you this story that Monk told me, and then you can riff on it. He said, Cyril Neville and I were playing a gig in Albuquerque. When we got there, we went by these guys' house. They were quote unquote bad musicians, meaning good. They wrote out charts and we rehearsed for 2 days. When we got to the venue, they were all mixed up. I asked the crowd, can you all excuse me for just a minute? Let me get this right. I walk over to the bass player. I said, I know you're a hell of a bass player because I heard you play. You put the charts on the side. I went to the guitar player and I told him the same thing. Hey, bro, don't worry about the charts. I know you can play, and I heard what you do. And you heard what I do. They put the charts away, and Cyril took the drums from the sticks from the drummer. The type of music that we play, you don't need no charts. You've got to play from your heart. If you're a hell of a musician, you should be able to play anything. Music comes from the heart. You can read charts and play anything in the world, but when you get on that stage with a rock band, you don't need charts. And I found that to be so revealing because that's what you just spoke about in that living room with Art, with the Hawkettes. This was your education, and you understood it to the root. And I just would like you to talk to younger cats out there about. I'm obsessed with just throwing away the charts. People are you go see bands now in some places, and they have their iPads out because they don't know enough. They don't know the tunes. They don't have a big bag of vocabulary of tunes, so they have to rely on the. And even that is a disruption to the spirituality of music. You go to academia, you learn facility, you learn chops. You don't learn feel. You don't learn how to be on the bandstand. And here it is, You and Monk show up, pick these cats up. They get on the bandstand. They have no idea what's going on. You pick up the sticks. This is how it's done. And I just want, you can riff on it any way you want, but I just feel like that street scholar mentality is really lacking today. And again, like you talked about, that goes back to gentrification. But I just want you can reflect on that story. You can go anywhere you want with that.
I remember that. That's why I laughed at.
Yeah, I know you remember that.
That was at the Rhythm Room at Phoenix, Arizona. And
wow,
like you said, we rehearsed for two days, and everything was on the one. We got on the gig, and what happened? So immediately, after we noticed what was going on, we kind of stopped the first song. And that was kind of laughed us, man. Excuse me, brother. Let me get behind the drums and then Monk showed them how it's supposed to go. We just started doing what we do, and we hear what he's saying, man. Come on in and play your act. And we just think that down there where it's at. Don't even worry about that. And that happened, not just that, it happened in a few different situations where people think they understand. People think they can really feel that and portray it in the right way. But, if you don't have timing, you can't do that, So, and me and Monk, man, that's like my brother, my big chief,
Absolutely.
We go all the way back to one of those Indian practices that I was telling you about at the H&R Ball, is when we kind of met each other, because at first we didn't used to have no like conga drums and stuff like that at the Indian practice. It was mostly tambourines and different beating on bottles and different stuff like that, maybe a cowbell. But just slowly but surely, the other instruments started, some hanging out on their lakefront, with Alfred and them. And so that slowly but surely got incorporated into what was going on in those Indian practices. And it just got to the point where me and him, for whatever reason, the spirit decided, wound up on several occasions in the same Indian practice, playing together. So that's how far back me and him go. Then me and him wound up in a band together called the Voice of the Wetlands All Stars.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and several road trip, and like, that's a walking encyclopedia of real New Orleans folklore. And then the stories you can tell about, where some of those Indian times come from, where which tribes, when they started and all, because he's been doing it for so long, he's not the only one that could, run you down the whole lineage of how many tribes they have at this point, how many tribes they have at this point, So yeah, he's definitely a real genuine, New Orleans root culture originator.
Monk said that when he said, I went to the chief's house when I was 12 years old now he said he first masked. He used the word mask. That's where we rehearsed. He taught us how to play the drums and to listen. Before we even touched the drums, the chief would sit and talk to us. He was teaching us what to do and how to do it when Mardi Gras came. When he finished speaking, then we would get the drum. If he gave you a tambourine, he would tell you to play it, not beat it. If you're playing it right, he's going to let you know. If you can't get it, he'll take it away from you. We used to call the tambourine a drum. So is that accurate? I mean, when you first started to get involved, not even on the waterfront, but I mean were you given tambourines at first? I mean, they didn't just give you a drum to start.
Well, first of all, what if I can give me no tambourine? you go out there, if you wanted that, just like if you wanted a suit. You would tell me, well, hey, Big Chief, what I got to do to get a suit? So. That's how you get a suit. Sit down and sew. You know.
Right.
And everything that is associated with this, it comes from the heart, it comes from the soul, just like Monk said. And it's like people who into it and really know the root of it can, see somebody that don't really know sticking out like a sore thumb. It's like this. The ones that know don't say, and the ones that say don't know. And a lot of people be out telling stories about stuff that they don't really understand, that they don't really know about. And you hear it come from somebody like a Mark Woodrow, then you know you're getting the truth, you're getting the real deal.
Why? So I mean, just for the yeah. Go ahead.
I was about to say, just like being in a van, riding with Monk, looking at him sitting in the van, rocking down the highway, sewing, and telling them stories. Jeez. I feel really lucky that I got that, in my mental Rolodex.
Absolutely, Cyril. Why did you earn? You had earned when you first got those drumsticks. What was the evolution leading up to that? They didn't just give them to you. Well, what had you already done that, aside from just that bright shining light in your eyes, in order to
beating on everything with anything I could find. And at one point, I was told that I was given plastic utensils to eat with because I was breaking plates playing with forks. Put the glasses to hear how the glass sound and break the glass and so that I came with that, And like I said, man, that village I grew up in was one of the most rhythmic villages, but then you walk a few miles from there and wind up in the Sixth Ward in Tremaine, and the Carnival was bubbling even hotter down there, and so getting a chance to travel through all of them places with my uncle and going into the real heart of the culture like that, just turned me on to how really spiritual all of this was, and how real, that's something that, regardless of what else could be taken from it, that could never be taken from it. The fact that I know who I am, and I know that's the reason why I'm out there doing that, because I'm celebrating my ancestors. And I know they got a bunch of other people that do it for other reasons, but I also know they got a lot of people that become old-time enemies that's doing it for our ancestral spirits, And you think that's another thing that people can Google if they want. The history of Mardi Gras and some of the laws that were passed back in the 1700s by the French, and it can explain a lot to you.
Well, I mean, part of what my show is about, as you know, I mean, I'm cool with the internet, but there's so much misinformation out there that I love talking to the cats for this very reason, so I can transcribe these stories and get them out, because I'd rather do primary source than that's anyway. I've been waiting to play this. We have a game on this program called Name That Voice. I want to put this in for you, have you listen to it, and we'll come back and break it down.
The horn player was Charles Neville.
Really?
And
Jeez.
Charlie brought Aaron came up because he was on the run from something in New Orleans to New York, and Aaron was in the band with us, would play keyboards. He'd sit in and play keyboards with us for a couple of weeks at a time. And then Charles and I had a little band. When that band broke up, Charles and I put something together just to make some money. He brought the Pesant brothers in from New Orleans. So they were teaching me some New Orleans stuff. Like Charles Neville taught me how to really feel a shuffle. And so Mac is saying to me, and I was playing a little bit of that second line stuff that they showed me, and he said, yeah, that's good, but if you really want to play the feel of this New Orleans kind of music, you got to think tango. And I'm like, what?
Tango?
He says, tango, yeah. And so he starts humming something like Hernando's Hideaway. And he's saying, you know, like the basic idea was at this slow tempo, pat, pat, boom, pat, pat, boom, pat, pat, goo, goo, cat, pat. So I started playing that, basically. I started thinking and singing Hernando's Hideaway in my head and playing all variations of that stuff. And then Mac goes over and sits down at the piano and starts playing this insane, indigenous New Orleans kind of music. And it all just fell right into place. And I remember him looking over at me with this sort of big smile on his face and nodding, and then when we were done, he goes, "Yeah, that's what I was talking about." but if you spent any time with Mac, which I did a lot of time, and you'd know that he had his own language that he spoke, and you know, like you got your Machimichi, which it was actually, did you have a cassette machine in the old days with cassettes, and they had a Nakamichi, and the way he strung those words together were, you got your Machimichi with you. And there were always things like that. And I remember we were doing an actual, Mac used to sing commercials. I don't know, there's a time when, you know, he was, if you know anything about Mac Rebenak, you know that he had hard times and big up times and down times like we all have had.
Absolutely.
And so he was singing on some commercials, and we were doing a Tic Tac commercial, and it was me and Mac and I were playing together on it, and Mac was singing it and playing piano. And it was at a studio in New York. I don't want to say the name. It was a nice studio, and it was wooden walls on a slant, almost kind of half a herringbone or something, slanted wood in the walls, soundproofing and stuff like that. And during one of the playbacks, Mac and I are standing over in the corner together, and he puts his hands on the wall, and he rubs it, and he goes, "This is an awful nice place. They ought to turn it into a studio."
You have any idea who that is?
No, I don't.
That is the drummer Rick Marotta. And Marotta, that was actually the wrong clip. He literally talked about how Charlie Neville taught him how to play a shuffle, and it was, and this is the thing. I mean, this is what Charlie said, and I need you to break this down for me. He said, Aaron and Cyril had a band in New Orleans called the Soul Machine. We started doing some tunes that they did. It was a guy named Sam Henry and the Soul Machine. The name of the drummer was Bulldog, along with Aaron, Cyril, and Willie West. Sam Henry was the keyboard player. They were really great funky musicians in that band. Aaron and Cyril came up to New York, and we put a band together. At first, it was just a trio. Aaron on keyboards and singing, Cyril on congas and singing. They had great harmony singing together. We used to play at a club called Catch a Rising Star. There was a club on the Upper East Side that was owned by Bodini, who was Cassius Clay's manager. It was just a trio until my neighborhood showed up to one of the gigs and realized it was Aaron. And then he said it was one of his idols. But can you talk about the Soul Machine, and then ultimately like why you guys decided to come to New York. I mean, this is the few tracks that are out there are ridiculously ferocious, and I would love you to break that down. I think it's just one of the most remarkable pieces of history. I know Charlie left New Orleans. He just got tired for a variety of reasons. He got tired of the racism and the BS and all the stuff we've been talking about. And I'd like you to talk about your journey to New York.
Well, actually, I got to New York like from the fact that being at this particular time, early like 1971, up in that area, I had to get out of New Orleans. So, the New Orleans I grew up in was a pressure cooker. And so, just having said that, at this point in time, I went up to New York to live with Charles, Miami. And that was like basically an economic thing too, because we, like as far as the whole soul machine thing, we had came from New Orleans and we went to Nashville with that, and actually did a couple of years in Nashville at this club called the New Era.
Wow.
And and I mean it was pretty good times too. And so we went from there the first time to New York, and we stayed there for a few months or so, and then we got home. I can't remember exactly what brought us back home, but we didn't stay that long. We wound up back in New York, and that's when we actually, the trio that we had, we recorded at the Wild Chapter Tours. Like the guy at the Rising Star, when he was introducing us, you said, yeah, these guys from New Orleans, and that was funny name, and when they came in, I thought it was robbery, because of the way we was dressed and everything. So, I mean, that was another education and a half, because I used to tell people, used to ask me, what was the first foreign country you went to? That's, man, New York.
Yeah. Well, I mean, can I ask you? Well, first of all, like, this is just so beyond. I mean, are there any recordings from Catch a Rising Star? That to me is the most insane gig I've ever heard in my life. It's you singing, Aaron singing, no trap set.
And then on top of that, the young comedian that was there doing his thing and kind of being an announcer and everything was Louis Belter.
No.
And, yeah.
Oh.
So, that was, and we, matter of fact, we had another band with this guy named Bill Dicey, and it was kind of a blues mixed with jazz band,
No, that's what Charles. Charles said. He said we did a recording in New York that was way ahead of its time with a guy named Bill Dicey who was playing guitar and harmonica. I mean, I need to find that immediately.
The name of one of the songs is to put the last clean shirt on my poor brother Bill.
Oh my! Is that an original tune? Are you kidding me? Is that an original tune?
Yeah, the actual we actually had gigs, with Bill Dicey. So his music, and that was one of his popular songs, and but then we had also at one point with another band from Brooklyn called Subway that was run by a guy named Cyril Green, and we did that for about how years. So wow.
What was the name of the cat's name? What was the cat's name?
Cyril Green.
Cyril Green. I was going to ask you about, like, going to New York, because like you said, New Orleans, people think it's a big city. It's not. It's not just like, size wise. It's not. I mean, it's rich, but it's not huge. Going to New York for you was a foreign country, but was it less of a pressure cooker? Did you feel like you were? Did you feel a little more liberated there? And I mean, and did you get a chance to? I don't know. I don't know what was even happening at that time. I mean, I don't think the Palladium was still. I'm just trying to figure out the other conga players you might have collaborated with while you were there.
The last part of what you said.
Yeah, no, don't worry about it. You know what? You talked about this pressure cooker. I want to play this. I'm going to play you one more audio clip, and I want you to listen to this, and then you come back and talk about your own experience. Okay?
Yeah. What was the last part of the question?
Yeah, no, it was basically I was asking you. The short answer is why was New York so foreign to you? Why was it like a foreign country?
Oh, what I meant by that was that when I got there, and that was the first time I was anywhere that I had heard that many different languages.
Dig. Oh, I love you guys. Always make things so simple. I now it makes sense. It was a melting pot.
Yeah. And like the neighborhood we lived in Brooklyn, which was I looked at as one of the happiest and freest times of my life, was when I lived in Brooklyn, first with Charles, and then I wound up with my own apartment on Putnam Avenue in Flatbush. Just as the transition was happening, where it was turning from one type of neighborhood into another, where it was turning in the Caribbean, and I just fell in love with it. I walked everywhere, just like I did in New Orleans. So Charles' house was on Union Street between 4th and 5th Avenue, and I would walk from all the way where, Putnam Avenue all the way to his house, enjoying the scenery. And one of the things that was, the burned in my memory was every Sunday in this real schoolyard that had a hole cut in the fence in the back where everybody would bring their drums and pass their drums through that hole. And the little basketball court would be this big, drums of all sizes and all kinds, because they had cast there from Puerto Rico, they had cast there from Cuba, cast there from Haiti, all these different shields. And, somebody would just start playing. And the next thing you know, you've got this chorus going on. And I had my little one drum. I learned a whole lot of stuff during that part on Sundays, And the other thing about it was a lot of times some of the cats would bring food, and that was my first time eating some of this, like I ate bacalao. Is what I learned it was afterwards. It looked like something that is cooked in New Orleans that we call dirty rice.
Right.
Kind of find out it was squid. Shit, I had after the second helping, that was, I didn't care then. It was good. But anyway, that was what that was, like a United Nations of percussion in that park every Sunday.
Now, do you remember where the park roughly was? Like, was it near your house at Putnam, or was it more? Where was it?
It was by Charles, and it was like you lived on the Union above Fifth Avenue in school, and that's what it was. And then, like on Union Street, on one side of Union Street, lived that was mostly Italians, and then on this side of Union Street was mostly Puerto Rican, Black, Jewish, mixing, because that's a bunch of the musicians that we met were Jewish. And So, like I said again, this whole thing of these different cultures all finding a way to mix together, but at the same time, every one of them stood out on its own. And, that to me reminded me of the Indians. Everybody stood out on their own, but everybody was totally different at the same time. So that's it. That was some of the...
that is just the most incredible story in the world. I mean, that is... I got one more voice to play for you, Cyril, and we'll call it a day, but this means a lot to me. On my show, my show is about love and the lineage of all music and rhythm and raising vibrations, and so it's just with the highest honor that I can play you this, and I'd like you to come back and talk about your own experience, okay?
Okay.
Well, one of the things about being in Angola was while I was there, James Black shows up.
Really?
And there was a band. There was some, I was busted for 2 joints. There were lots of musicians being busted for possession of narcotics, narcotic paraphernalia and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So that's how James Black came in possession of narcotics. James Booker was there, and he got out not too long after I got there.
Oh my gosh!
And there were cats, like the guys in the band were like, really great. That there was the prison was segregated then. Everything was still segregated when I went in there. Yeah. Not only in the prison but everywhere in the South. So there were the white musicians and there were black musicians. And the majority of the white, there were a couple of white bands, but the white bands played country western and Cajun music. And with the black bands, we had one black band that was rhythm and blues funk band, and we had the jazz band.
This is unbelievable.
And one white trumpet player from New York who had the misfortune to get busted in Louisiana.
Yep.
Was a bebop player, so he didn't want to play with the white bands.
Was it Chet Baker?
No. It was a guy named Russell Sweet.
Okay, so he didn't want to play the country western Cajun stuff. He wanted to hang.
Right, he wanted to play with the cats playing jazz.
The cats,
but that was against the law. So if he got caught playing with us, he'd go to the dungeon.
It was a law within the prison that you couldn't.
No, that was a law. From what I understand, in New Orleans, it was against the law for black and white musicians to play together.
This is not. I mean, whether it was in a pub or a social, anywhere.
Well, they weren't even supposed to be in the same place together.
So, but he was busted. He was busted there for drugs, or he was busted because he played.
Yeah, drugs. There was some kind of drug charge.
Okay, so then he came to jail and he was playing with the cats, and then he got busted again.
Well, he would play with the cats when we could sneak him in, and have him play, allow him to play a few tunes with us, and here come the man, you better get out of here.
I dig. Oh my gosh! So he went to the dungeon.
Yeah, if he got caught. But anyway, that part of the trip, like, okay, I got busted for the 2 joints, but at the time I was also a heroin addict, and the Tai Chi and the idea of the Tai Chi and any kind of spiritual help I could get was part of my trying to escape from the trap of the addiction.
Right.
And that was the beginning of it, where I had time away from the drug, to look at how life could be without it, if I could get my freedom from it. And at the time, being in there for the couple of years, I was clean, but I hadn't gotten away from whatever the hook was that was in me, because as soon as I got out, I went back to doing it, and moved and went from there really in a couple of days to New York, and that's where I was seeking help. I went through a bunch of different programs, drug programs, and then the guy told me about living in Brooklyn. There's a Tai Chi class there at the Academy of Music. So I went over there and talked with the teacher and started with the Tai Chi there. And again, it was just part of my spiritual journey in trying to get my life back. And it has helped me over the years, and I still practice, I still do the Tai Chi and the Qigong, and it's another spiritual connection, thing that's related to everything else. It's like playing the music is kind of the same kind of energy as doing the Tai Chi, or the same energy, because what it's about is being able to connect to whatever the higher energy is that feeds us all.
Well, I don't need to tell you who that is. That your late brother, Cyril Neville.
Oh, yeah.
And
Recognize.
Cyril, can you just talk a little bit about, where a time in your life when you faced serious adversity? The idea that Charlie spent 5 years in Angola for 2 joints. That's in and of itself just sounds criminal, but can you talk about a time in your existence when you faced a lot of adversity and ultimately how you overcame it and how it made you a stronger person and your life force is stronger today than ever before?
Well, basically, when we first started talking, we touched on that, music is how I, elevated my vibration to the point where I could kind of, I could survive through the struggle, And then the other thing I discovered that is what I have is an opportunity with the gift that I've been given is to actually share with other people the joy that it brings me to do it, and what I get when I see that it had done what it was, what I intended it to do, was come from my heart and go to the heart of another. So yeah, that whole thing, that about music being the universal language, it is also a spiritual force that, is obvious as to what happens in certain churches on Sunday when the choir gets to a certain level and, you can, sitting down and, denying that there is some sort of spirit in that room. So basically, that's the magic of it for me is that it allows you to use that music, using music as a filter for certain things and as a life preserver in other circumstances. Because like what Charles was talking about, you tell people that and they look at you like you're crazy. Like, what you mean is against the law for black and white musicians? Just what I said.
Exactly. Exactly.
Somebody found and decided to put this in the law books that, that black people and white people wasn't supposed to do this together, wasn't supposed to do that together, wasn't supposed to do. Then, all the cemeteries are separated and you're buried in the same place. So that's, part of that pressure cooker type thing I was talking about coming up on it. And on top of that, like when you're looking at everything in life around you is black and white. Everything is either, or no in between. And it's like you get these subliminal. So subliminal, like having to learn to read at a very early age. So, as my aunt put it, so you can read them signs, so you don't stumble into death. By drinking from the wrong water fountain or going in the wrong bathroom, you could die. So I tell you, man, 7 years old. That's actually I wasn't quite 7 yet. In 1955, when the thing happened with Emmett Till, dude, I don't think I came outside for about a year. I was scared to go to the grocery for, my mom, because, most of the grocery stores at that time was owned by, well, shit, it's like that now. Different, people other than us. So, then it was white people, Niles Arabs, and whoever else got, a big enough, good enough deal with the government. That, just that in itself, for lack of a better word, colors everything. Colors everything as far as for how you develop your thought patterns and how to get control over your emotions. Because, like I said, having that, his mother allowed Jet Magazine to put a picture of him before and after, how he looked when he first got to Monday, Mississippi, and how he looked after we drove him out the building. I don't have to close my eyes to see that image. That burned, embedded into my psyche, seeing that at 6 3/4 years old, and that, basically, kind of everything from that point on was basically a quest to not have that happen to me. And, music was one of the things that helped me avoid some of the pitfalls and traps that's set for people like me. That when I got to be like about 12 years old, it was even before that, maybe about 10, when I realized that the people around me, the people who was over everything, didn't want or didn't care whether I made it to 12. So I had to figure out that myself.
Wow.
How do I to want to live past what somebody else wants for me? Some pretty heavy shit for a little boy.
First of all, who was on Jet Magazine? I missed that. Who was on there?
His name was Emmett Till.
Oh, Emmett. Of course. No. Say no more. I just didn't hear what you said. Of course, I can. Yeah, that was seared into your mind at 6.5 years old. Whenever the 55.
Yes. See, back in those days, we started with they called it the Negro Digest, and then it graduated into Jet Magazine when the Johnson family bought that publication. But that was like history books for me.
Right.
Everything was going on in the black community was in those books, because we weren't written about in the other newspapers and everything. And if we were, and then the Times Picayune during the 1950s and 60s and maybe into the 70s, there was the white section and the color section of the newspaper. So, so when you get to wondering if that's true about whether black or white musicians could get together, that is what that's how you grew up, where somebody thinks about you and wants you to think that way about yourself. That, basically is in control of damn near everything in your life. How do you rise above that? Let me show you. And, like I said, luckily enough, I grew up in a time and in a space that had my brothers to begin with, my Uncle Jolly, my mother, and all of those other people I named in the neighborhood that had the same thing going on in their house that was going on in ours, that I got a chance to intermingle with too, is how I rose above that. Because there were these little villages, and we used to call it having to walk the gauntlet. You always, like for me to get from my house to my aunt's house, who lived on the other side of St. Charles Avenue, I had to come out the black neighborhood, walk through the white neighborhood to get to the other black neighborhood. So in between those maybe 10 blocks, you, if you're lucky, you only get stopped by the police 5 times.
Oh my God.
Not just stop and frisk.
Harassed, yeah, harassed.
Talk to like a slave, and then sometimes maybe 2-3 blocks later, the same police got you doing the same shit. So basically, I had to learn how to write that shit out. One of my favorite pastimes was reading. And I fell in love with poetry, and I started writing poetry, and I started putting some of the shit that I was feeling and everything into songs, and well, poems in the beginning, or just little short vignettes about different shit that I was feeling. Like, for instance, they were trying to desegregate a school called Sophie B. Wright. And they were actually busting around white people from Mississippi to come and be involved in the protest. So they was in front of the school chanting, 2, 4, 6, 8, we don't want to integrate. 2, 4, 6, 8. So, just, having further mind, it just popped up, 9, 10, 11, 12, all you crackers go to hell. And, I said, wow, you're a writer. I said, all right. And then the short phrase just sums up exactly how you feel. So that's the New Orleans I grew up in. And so let me tell you something about that thing with Charles.
Yeah, go ahead, man, please.
We can do 4 or 5 years and get 2 years and 7 months. But if you would have took them joints and opened both of them up and rolled what was in them up together, it would have been still like the size of a matchstick. And that's what he went to jail for. It was the size of
like a roach, like a roach or something, like small little thing.
I mean, the joints were so skinny and so small. I mean, it wasn't that much meat inside of either one of them. Well, then again, back in the days, the herb was good. But just saying that's the type of thing that, when he's telling you what book of wound up in there for, what now is being called the opioid epidemics will help everybody put clinics up, don't lock them up. Back in the days, wasn't none of that. You did for having power for malaria. You ain't even got any drugs. You used to do the drugs, and you go to jail. I remember going to jail for gleanings. You know what gleanings is?
No.
If you'd have sat down and rolled the joint on and you got a little bit on your pants leg, and you come in your front, that's they call gleanings, and you go to jail.
Oh my God! Oh my.
Yeah, so one of the stories is that Dr. John went to jail for hanging out at the Dewdrop. And, so yeah, that's real. That's some real shit.
I mean, just like you just hit me with a major heavy right hook there. I'm sort of like reeling from it, but it's like, have we... I mean, as being somebody who writes poetry, who sings, who plays drums, who performs on the bandstand, who understands the healing power of music, who understands the spiritual power of music, and the communal power of music. Can you? I mean, even before Resident Chump came into office, do you feel like we've made any progress in civil rights since the civil rights movement? Have we moved forward in some ways? Is there, I mean, I feel personally that, you know, Charles went to jail for a couple of joints that when rolled together was barely one. I know that, you know, I just feel like we're living in a more punitive, even though he got punished severely, I still feel like we're living in an even a more punitive society now, where you don't get any second chances anymore, especially if you have black skin or dark skin. I mean, you are these are for-profit prisons, and they're putting people away for their life. And even if they get out with the record of going to jail, it's just impossible for them to get a job. And I just ask Cyril Neville, have we made progress at all as being, because I think we're all one human race, even though a lot of people don't want to really look in the mirror or see that, and they're horrified by differentiation and multi-ethnic culture, and I don't understand that because I think it's the greatest thing in the world. But what do you say? Have we made progress at all?
Well, okay, this is the type of progress that has been made. As we speak right now, one strata of society is becoming millionaires and billionaires in the new pot industry. Meanwhile, all over the United States, they got little people who was in jail for just having something.
Okay, yeah. Oh my God, yep.
Not growing it, not distilling it, not doing nothing, but just for having some. And some of those people got hooked up with the three strikes bullshit and wound up with, you know, life sentences, you know, longer time than murderers and shit. So that's the progress we've made. The progress we made is the public school system is conduits to the prison industrial complex. And the progress we have made is little groups like Black Lives Matter popping up. And, you know, if, you know, people say it's a controversial thing, but if Black Lives did matter, there would be no need for a group of their name. And that's the progress that we have made. And we have become the divided states of America, you know, which it was that all along, if you ask me, you know, because from where I stood, you know, there's always a lot of things, you know, dating all the way back to the codes noir in the 1700s, the black codes, that there was always some shit like, okay, people talking about, well, the Emancipation Proclamation and blah, blah, all this kind of stuff, and how the Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves and all this. Well, basically, that might be true, and the 13th Amendment and all this kind of stuff. You just got to remember that phrase that is hooked on to that, you know, you can't hold nobody against their will unless they have committed some kind of crime, you know. Okay, so when this society turns around and create a law called the vagrancy law, that if you just standing around and ain't got nothing to do, because we just freed tonight. We freed, so you're supposed to be able to do something. Well, we got something for you. You can't just hang around here, so we're going to put you in jail.
Right.
And while you're in jail, you might just get rented out to the Dickey Mine Company or some other corporation that we call the United States is dealing with, you know. Different from what we got now. 2 or 3 young black people walking on the street right now can can just die just for that, just for walking down the street. Just not too long ago, it's all on the internet. Some young man walked past some white person's house, and that kid killed him just for passing in front of our house.
This went down. This went down in New Orleans.
It happened in America. That's the point.
Yeah. Right. Right.
So yeah, it's about civil rights movement. Okay. Basically, all along, it's been human rights. That's the question.
Right.
That, has always been in question. Our humanity has always been in question. If our humanity wasn't in question, there would have been no redlining when it came to where people could buy a house from, or where people could live, or who could live next to this one, and all of this kind of stuff. So, as far as progress is concerned, the best I can see is that a lot of people have awakened and see the bullshit for what it is. Not whether people are going to come together and really come together and do something positive for the people coming after us. That's the question. Can we and will we?
I started my show because back in 2011 because I really loved Barack Obama as a human being, and I really didn't understand why. I was just very naive. Being on the planet 40 years, I in the late 90s at Boston University, I thought we were living in this sort of post-racial society, and now you see that this is the direct reaction to his 8 years in office. And people say, oh, we have the first black president. We have Oprah Winfrey. What else? Michael Jordan. What else do you want? And you're talking about the fact that there's just so much stuff that is mischaracterized, and just flat out just bullshit, for lack of a better word. And I just wanted to know, were you proud of Barack Obama and his job and the job he did?
It's like this for me. Everybody, children, adolescents, old elders, love a circus, love a big show. And what we have been having for the last it's like the whole thing going back to the Roman Empire. Bread and the gladiators fighting in the ring. So it's like, unfortunately, it just seems like we're regressing rather than progressing in a lot of areas. And we could be doing much better. And if people, this is not something that just popped up, because Obama became president.
Right. That's right.
That's how the ant pile got stirred. But look at the ants that came out of it, and look, as far as how this is vicious stuff. No president ever has been maligned, or no first lady has ever been maligned. No little children that was in the White House ever got talked about like them people did. Now, having said that, we got on the subject of about the progress that we made. I hope he was talking about as a society.
That's right. Absolutely. You made that very clear, and I appreciate that. So, yeah, that's what I was really trying to ask.
Well, as a society, the children, separated from their families. Well, you got to remember, go back into American history. This is an American tradition. This is part of that 300 and some year Holocaust that people went through, of children being separated from their parents. So that is what I said. Another thing is that what we dealing with is that history, if you don't pay attention to it, will tend to repeat itself. And so you basically we had, like I said earlier, we had the opportunity to change things several times, and it seems like everybody who's for change got some lead, and it got to the point where now we are praying and hoping for leaders like that to come back, and fortunately what we have is we've got a lot of young people who get it, young people who have risen and see and are speaking about it. Fortunately, in the hip-hop world, there's some truth coming back into what's being spoken as that hip-hop thing was in the beginning, before it started being pimped, So basically, just like in the music industry, I'm not for labels,
right,
and categories.
I hate it.
So as far as this whole thing that we talk about by society, I know for sure that I'm not catching hell because I'm a Democrat. I'm not catching hell because I'm a Republican. I'm not catching hell, for none of those reasons. I'm catching hell because of how somebody else in power perceives me and how much power they think I'm supposed to have and the place that I'm supposed to be and how do I peak in there. And all of this stuff about make America great again, going back to the good old days and all of this kind of stuff. When we saw the good old days when they was marching with the torches and shit in the street, that's the good old days for some people. Us hanging from trees is the good old days for some people. And some of the young people know that, and they're not going back that way. And, as we speak right now, because of one of those young minds and one of those young voices that has been faith and silence, now bloods and crips all over the United States is, come on, man, let's get together. So when we talk about change, that's a good change for me. Now, what needs to change is all of this stuff about Democrat, Republican, or whether I'm what they call the new thing,
Socialist, yeah.
I mean, what difference do it make?
Cyril, you're nailing it. Well, it's just meant to divide us again. That's what you talked about before.
Let me finish my thought. What difference does it make when one candidate for president has over 3 million more votes than the other candidate, but that other candidate still winds up the president because of something we call the electoral college? What the hell is that?
Well, no. Here's the deal. On that particular issue, I would say the criminal part of it is okay. It's okay to listen in the NFL, in National Football League. They make millions and millions, and the whole league makes huge amounts of money, but they have to adjust. All of a sudden, helmet to helmet hits, outlawed. You have to change. So the idea that amending the Constitution to change it to a plurality or a popular vote, the fact that people would say, "Oh no, we can't amend anything. This is not what the founding." That's the criminal part. Okay, it's the evolution. We need to evolve. That's what you've been basically saying. The criminal part is saying, no, we're just going to keep it the same way. We can't change anything. We can't put 15 justices on the Supreme Court. Why not? Any other successful operation evolves and changes. And so that to me is the problem. The Electoral College.
My question is, what's so supreme about it? What's so supreme about that and the people that become that gives them a lifetime job? Calling shots. I
think that's the yeah. Go ahead.
The thing is that needed some attention a long time ago that didn't get the attention it needed then. So that's why we are where we are now. And like I said, fortunately, young people get it. Young people seeing where where the whole mind games start, and they not buying it. They're not having it. And but then you get the other side of it. Now you got the other people that you've seen, and that was young people marching through the street with intelligence.
That's right, Charlottesville. You're darn right about that.
So I'm just saying that's like another generation of those people have evolved, just like another generation of people like the civil rights leaders that we had in the 60s and 70s have evolved into the other organizations that's out there now. So basically that's what I'm saying. It's like for all my life it's been like that. You take 2 steps forward, society kick you back forward. No matter how you play the game, whatever they tell you about the American dream, you got to jump through this hoop, you got to leap over this barrier, you got to swim across this river. And after you've done that, you get on the other side of the river thinking that, okay, where's my American dream? You realize that the American dream wasn't for you, wasn't planned for you. Like I said, the realization when you're 10 years old that the people who are in control of your life don't care and don't want you to make it to 12. You start doing some serious, heavy reading at that point. And make sure you understand that, like my aunt put it, that you don't stumble in your death. But you know what's up at all points. And that's why I write like I write. That's what most of the songs I write about is that type of stuff. Put some truth out there. Let's deal with the truth first. Let's be honest with each other about it. Yes, this happened. This is part of history. Don't tell me, forget about it. Oh, just leave that where it's at. No, I'm not going to leave it where it's at. The bottom line is that is the only way that everything in this case is like we see for the country to live out its creed or whatever you want to call it. And, we like you got to just think about this, that you're living in this society, that the people who put these phrases together, like all men were created equal and endowed and inalienable rights, was slave owners. So, anyway, back to what we were
I mean, you, Cyril, this has been an ode to truth. I want to ask you, it says here on the internet that, on Google, that you're playing Thursday, May 2nd at high noon at the Fairgrounds Racecourse and Slots in New Orleans. Can you confirm that? Because I'm going to be there.
Yeah.
So I want to come. I want to come see you play. I want to come and catch a hang with you, man. I just had an absolute ball with you for the We've been on the phone for 2 hours, dude.
Well, I was just about to say, can we have like one more question to sum everything up we've been talking about, and then call it a day?
Let's do it. You want me to come up with a question?
Yeah.
Okay, baby. Yeah. Here we go, baby. You ready?
Yeah.
What is your concept of love? And ultimately, how have you always looked towards the light And what is your, so it's a three-part question. What is your concept of love through all the swimming across the rivers and the hurdles, and you get to the other side and it's still not the American dream? How have you always looked towards the light, and what would be your advice or your inspiration to those who are right now, who may never hear this, but this is going to go out into the world, that are absolutely being held unjustly or being treated unfairly or being separated from their family? What would be your advice to them? Your concept of love, how have you always learned to look towards the light, and what's your inspiration for those who are being held down?
Well, you know, I was told early on that really God is love. And this broad, spirit of goodness, love is what I think makes the world go round. A lot of other people think it's hate, but I think love is one of the most powerful forces in the universe. And I'll put it to you like this. All of that stuff that I was telling you about that I went through, you can multiply that times by 5 by the time I got to the point where I met the queen, the goddess that's in my life right now, my Queen Danielle. For the last 41 years, that love has sustained. Matter of fact, I put it like this. The Cyril Neville that everybody knows that has been doing all of the writing and all of this stuff, you would never have met him if it hadn't been for me meeting and being loved by Danielle Houser Neville.
Beautiful, beautiful.
And the love that I feel coming from my children, even though I have children from different sections of my life, it's all love. And the whole thing about how I came up, that neighborhood I came up in, like I said, it wasn't a neighborhood, it was a village. And everybody knew everybody. Everybody loved everybody, and everybody took care of everybody, So that is what I've carried in my heart all my life. And that's what I put into everything I do. That what I do puts some positive, brings positive vibrations. Never anything but more in the vibration. That's what I think it's that I was given to me for. So that's the path I've been following all my life, the path I'm going to continue to follow. But like I said, love to me became personified in the woman that's in my life that has helped shape me into the man that I am today. And that's real.
Well, yeah, you found a soulmate, man. That's kind of what we're all looking for, man. And I think it's absolutely beautiful. And Cyril, I much love to you, man. I'll reach out. Can I reach out to you before that gig? Because I'm gonna come to New Orleans.
Yes, I've enjoyed this more than a bunch of interviews out there. I got to check. There was one more thing I wanted to say.
we can do part. Let's. We got more to do. We can do part 2 anytime, man.
Oh yeah, in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
I hung out on the same street, almost on the same corner that Biggie hung out on. But it just was a few years before he came along. But I, Fulton and Waverly, and that's the whole of Fulton Street area right there that I learned that was his stomping ground. I actually used to be there seeing that, And so I love the fact that I got that chance to be in Brooklyn for the time that I got to be at. And that was all that, sleeping in Prospect Park.
Well, yeah, this is just set 1. We're going to do we got a whole other. I don't think we even really I mean, this was a sociological dive today. We'll get into the music as well. But yeah, it was really my honor, man. I absolutely, much love to you and your family, and I look forward to meeting you in person in a couple weeks, man.
Man, me too. I'd like to meet you, man. Is there any way I could get a copy?
Are you kidding me, dude? Just give me a few. I gotta go pick my girls up. When I get home, I'll edit it down. This is being sent right to you, baby.
All right.
All right?
I appreciate you.
Yeah, love you, Cyril. Keep it up, man. Don't ever quit.
Thank you, brother.
All right. Be good. Peace. Wow. There is no greater love. Cyril Neville, In the Books, Part 1. We'll be back with Billy Cobham right after this.